Have you ever walked in on your partner cheating? I didn't technically walk in on them, but I saw her walk home with a guy in college after a party her sorority threw. I was across a large crowd and would not have been able to catch up to them. I tried calling her, and I saw her look at her phone and ignore it. My response was pretty immature. I texted a girl who I knew had a crush on me, and I asked her to come over. She did, and before anything happened, I began to start bawling. Girl leaves, I couldn't sleep, and the next morning my girlfriend and I talk. That was the first time of many that we broke up over the next year and a half. Never again. This hasn't happened to me, but I would do exactly as my dad did to my mom. He walked in and saw her with a guy, so he reached into his pocket and pulled out all the change he had. He set it on the nightstand and said, "It's okay, man. I'll pay for her tonight. Won't cost you a dime." Yep. I wanted to marry her. I was 19 and hot-headed. Went to work, pretended I'm sick to get out 2 hours into work. Went to market, got some food, ice cream and rented a movie. Got back home, the TV was loud as fuck, so I walked into bedroom just to find my girlfriend of about 2 years on top of my neighbor, whom I helped find a job at my work. My girlfriend had the most terrified face ever. She said, "OMG, I thought you went to work. Just don't do anything crazy, please. I wanted us to see other people." I'm ashamed to say that I did beat the shit out of the guy, then dragged him out half naked to the apartment staircase. Then I made her pack her stuff and leave. I spent the rest of the day crying. I never watched the rented movie, and to this day I feel weird when the Top Gun is on TV. Oh, and I did get that guy fired. I did. I dated a girl for 3.5 years. We had our ups and downs, but I figured if we could make it 3+ years then we should get married. We finally decide to get married. She was all about this huge Cinderella wedding and pressured her parents into shelling out close to $25,000 for everything. My family was poor and there was no way they could have ever afforded anything like that. So, we get married and go on our honeymoon. Once we get back from the honeymoon, she slowly begins to start acting distant. Distant to the point of her going out partying and hanging with her friends and not wanting me to go along. I figured she was just stressed about marriage and I tried to give her space. Eventually, I started to get suspicious and I asked her if she was doing anything wrong. She would get mad and blow up at me when I would ask. One night told her I was going to my parents' house, 1.5 hours away, and that I wouldn't be home until the next day. She says she's just going to hang out at the apartment and chill. I do go see my parent, but I leave around 9 o'clock the same night and head back towards our apartment. She isn't there when I get home, so I go to my brother's house, where I ended up falling asleep. I get up really early and go over to my apartment. When I walk inside the bedroom, I see her and her boyfriend laying naked in her bed. I screamed a few things at her and threw a couple of things and then left. I'm sure there are a lot of you that think I should have beat his ass, but he isn't the one to blame. She was. He wasn't married, she was. My issue was with her, not him. We had only been married 3.5 months. Another little bonus was that later I found out that he was the second guy she has screwed since we had gotten married. What made everything even more shitty and fucked up is that she didn't cheat on me while we were dating. She waited until we were married. The only thing I can figure is that she was more interested in the wedding than the marriage. Needless to say, we got a divorce. I was very depressed for 6 to 8 months. For the first 3 months I would try to go to sleep and I would sit there and shake uncontrollably. I honestly think I was on the ragged edge of a complete nervous breakdown. This crappy story does have a happy ending. A few years later, and after another shitty relationship, I met my soulmate. We've been married for 11 years and to this day, I would go through every shitty thing that has ever happened to me again if it meant that I would be with her. Walked in on my wife of 2 years in bed with her boss. I remember just kind of standing there in shock for a few minutes until she noticed me. When she saw me, I just turned around and left without saying a word. I don't remember much after that. I kind of blacked out for a few hours, lots of crying, begging to forgive her, etc. Packed my shit up and left the next day. Luckily we didn't have any kids or a mortgage or any assets, so it was a clean break. In retrospect I should have seen the signs, but I was young and naive, I guess. I came home from something and walked into my room, and my roommate and my girlfriend were on the couch listening to music and didn't think anything of it because we were all friends and it wasn't out of the ordinary. Later I found that right before I walked in they were making out and had been behind my back for weeks. Yep. Fiancé when I was in college. We went to different schools, and I was supposed to visit for the weekend. I had a fight with my roommate, so I decided to leave a few hours early, and when I got to her apartment at about 7 a.m., I knocked on her door. No answer. That's weird. Her car is in the parking lot. At this point, I kind of knew something was amiss, so I decided to park my car across the street where I had a clear view of her door. I sat there for a few hours watching and no one came or went in that time. After a few hours had passed, I went and knocked on her door again. This time, she answered. When I asked her where she had been, she told me that she had just gotten back from class, which was obviously a lie. I had already gone through the full range of emotions when I was watching her door. Starting with extreme anger, and eventually landing on just feeling really hurt. So, when I pushed my way inside and saw a dude in her bed, I kind of reacted like whipped puppy. I didn't actually break up her on the spot, which was really stupid in retrospect. She was a terrible human being, and I dealt with it for a few more months after that before I finally washed my hands of her. I am a very different person now, and my bullshit tolerance is very low, so I guess I have that to thank her for. She was very attractive and very beautiful, but she was a shitty human being. I'm so glad she showed her cards before we got married, because marrying her would have been the biggest mistake of my life. She's still single, go figure. I'm happily married to a beautiful woman who I consider my best friend, and we have 2 great kids. I win. Never happened to me, but my friend and I were at a bar one night. Saw her boyfriend there. He was being a drunk idiot and she was upset, so we went back to my place. She told him she was gonna stay over at my place. At about midnight she said, I just don't feel good about this, I'm gonna go home and smooth things over. She walks into her house, there's shoes everywhere. She assumed it was her roommate and a girl he was with. Phone on the counter started to ring obnoxiously. She looked at the screen and there was a text that said, "You're with Pete?" Pete is my friend's BF, so she opened it to see why the girl said that, and the previous text was, "Lol, I'll call you later, I'm about to fuck Pete." So my friend runs upstairs, opens the door to find Pete balls deep in this chick. Rightfully so, my friend was pissed, shocked, and everything else you can imagine. She punched Pete in the face, grabbed the chick by her hair and beat the shit out of her, locked her out of the house and threw her clothes at her and broke up with Pete on the spot. She came back over to my place that night and stayed there for a few days. Then moved back in with her parents. Pete called her a million times to apologize, called me to apologize, called her parents and 2 sisters to apologize. He had to go out of town for work and send her flowers every day he was away. She moved her shit out of that house while he was gone. Unfortunately, after a month or so of apologizing and begging, she took him back. Forward a few years to the current day, they are engaged. No. But I have a good one. I was out with a friend, who's a girl, and my boyfriend, at the time, out hiking. She got cold and he offered her to wear his vest. He wore that vest every day. Then he went off to gather firewood. She stuck her hand in the pocket and grimaced. She pulled out a used, not even tied in a knot, just all slimy, condom. But here's the kicker. He had an ex visit him a week and a half before. I wasn't worried at the time. I dumped him. Not specifically for cheating, but for being that nasty ass dude who would fondle a 9-day-old used condom. Every day. Yup. We had plans for me to come and stay at his house for the night, as we often would. He stops responding to me for about 2 hours after complaining about how tired he was from work. I was in possession of his phone charger, which he left at my place the night before, so when the texts I sent him turned from blue iMessages to green text messages, I assumed his phone had died. Thinking he had just fallen asleep after a long day at work, I decided I would stop by a 7-Eleven, grab some of his favorite snacks and surprise him, even though we already had plans, so it really wasn't a surprise at all. Walked into his place. He lived with his parents, so the door was often unlocked, and headed to his room to find him full on banging some other chick I had never seen before. The worst part is all he said was, "I shut off my phone, why would you just show up at my house?" Instead of an apology or anything remotely close to taking responsibility for what was going down. I screamed a nice "fuck you," slammed his door, the front door, slammed on my horn and smashed all the snacks/soda I brought for him on the front porch. Asshole didn't even reach out to me until the next day. I caught my now ex-wife, married 10 years, lock herself in a bathroom with another guy at a party. I confronted her and within the week I'd kicked her out. I was heartbroken and depressed for a few weeks, but in the end I'm much better off. Yes. They didn't notice me, so I picked up her laptop, started clapping very obnoxiously, and then I hit the asshole over the head with her laptop, smashing it to pieces. It was a great fucking reaction. She was shocked as fuck, and he was just having a good time before he felt a laptop to the head. Guess they were so in the zone that they didn't hear my great clapping. She started doing the whole "it's not what it seems" routine, chasing after me, and I just said okay. I then straightened up my suit, cracked my knuckles, cleared my throat, coughed and left peacefully. I then cried in my car for a couple of hours. I dated a guy for a couple of years. We were going through a bad patch and he wanted to go out drinking by himself. It felt off, so the next morning I paid him a surprise visit at his studio flat. He opened the door and wasn't really making eye contact. I figured there was stuff to talk about, but I did not expect to step out of his entryway and see a half-naked chick still in his bed. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach when I saw her. I dumped him on the spot, but I still can't believe he just let me walk in and see her like that. Yeah, I did. When I entered the room, she had the whole thing in her mouth already. She choked a little bit when she looked up and saw me. I turned around to leave and she called me and ran after me, begging me to wait. She asked me if I hated her. I told her no. Then she asked me if I thought she looked fat. I told her she looked fine and the diet was her idea. If she wants to eat a donut, I couldn't care less.